So you've been asked to run a user journey workshop. Congratulations, that's great. And you might have been told all you need to do is get a group of people together with some stickies and some markers, and voila, job done. Yes, that's technically correct, but also wildly misleading. Because what actually happens is more like this. You walk in with a plan. You leave with 300 sticky notes with 3 conflicting opinions and someone saying, wait, what problem are we solving again? And yet, when user journeys are done right, these workshops really do work. You get clarity, alignment. Everyone on the same page can solve the right problems in the right way. And by doing so, they invest skin in the game, meaning they will more likely do what they say they're going to do and agree to a process they have ownership in. That's the magic of journey mapping. So let's talk about how running a workshop actually gets you there, gets you those results and outcomes without the downside of sticky note chaos. First, understand what you're actually doing. What is the goal? What problem are you trying to solve? A journey mapping workshop's goal is not to build something pretty, but something useful and meaningful and relevant to the organization, something that helps move the ball forward. And that starts with getting people to understand the situation from the user's perspective and in a step-by-step process, understand what's working, what's not, and what needs to change. That step should never be missed. It's absolutely important because the biggest thing I've seen with projects is where not all the users understand the problem the same way, and certainly they don't understand the solution the same way. They don't even understand the same language of the problem and solution, often in the same way. So getting on this common ground, same page, shared vernacular, shared language is critical to any step that comes after. And if you're the facilitator, your job is to define, why does this matter? Why are we doing this journey map today? The next question you need to be ready to answer is, what is the process? What are we going to do today? Understanding who's benefiting from this work and who needs to execute the work is equally important, especially toward the end of the workshop, and I'll show you how that works in a minute. And last is the how. How will we execute the work? How will this be actionable in the future? If you can manage to get all assumptions out of people's heads and onto paper so people can discuss it, so people can align with it, so people can understand that maybe they don't all understand things the same way. Because even experienced facilitators and workshops can stress on this one point and yet miss the mark. If you're not clear about your goal and your scope before you even start, then the session loses focus almost immediately. So don't overcomplicate it. Pick one user, one scenario, and one outcome. That's your anchor point. It keeps everyone focused. Now, it's the day of the workshop. Let's get into what that looks like. This is where the fun and the chaos begin. You'll probably start by asking people what they already know, and suddenly the markers and the paper comes out and sticky notes are flying everywhere. Ask people to be specific. Write down insights, assumptions, frustrations, one idea per note, and then group them, cluster them, rearrange them. So what is all this sticky mess about? Well, not only people giving a dump of their problems, their processes, their ideas, and even their emotions, but also to understand the language they're using, the way they talk about processes, the roadblocks that they're seeing, and the processes they think are working. What you're doing is turning scattered knowledge into aligned understandings, creating something everyone can see and understand. And this usually leads to the first mini aha moment. And people start realizing, we're not all seeing things the same. The next step is to map the current state. What do things look like today? And this is where you start actually building your first journey. Now, you might already have a process map, in which case that can stand in for some of this work. But it's important to take the content you've already created as a group and then turn that into the map. Because what you might find out is that the process map you're working from as the current isn't really the way people do things today, which means it's a false concept of what's true. People might have written that a long time ago, no one's trained on it or uses it for anything, and so it's not really the way things get done. People have workarounds and, I don't do that step, or, I send that not to marketing but to accounting, it's faster that way. You need to know that. And taking the time to really validate the current step with people in the room who know the current steps is important. And as a facilitator, along the way, you're asking, What is the user experiencing? What are they doing? What are they thinking? And what are they feeling? And what's the actual outcome they're getting? So I'm doing this. This is what's happening. Here's what I think about it. And here's what I feel about it. So here's the important point about that current state. It needs to be real and relevant, but it doesn't have to be perfected. And there might even be assumptions and disagreements about the way of working. That's not a problem. That's the point. To understand how things are really working, and maybe part of the problem is not everyone is using the process flow in the same way, because those gaps are one of the real insights to the process of journey mapping altogether. And then comes the most important part of any workshop, finding the pain points. Where does the experience break? Where does the frustrations build? Where are there quick wins we can fix? Where do users get frustrated, confused, stuck, annoyed, angry, and ready to jump to your competitor's solution? That's what you really want to dig into. Journey mapping is powerful because it helps teams identify these pain points clearly and not just individually, but across the whole experience. Not because someone says something brilliant, because suddenly everyone sees the process and the problems in the same way. And this really gets people into that true flow of future state thinking, because then you allow people to start brainstorming. And if you want to know more about brainstorming, by the way, I've got 7 great ways to brainstorm on a video here. I'll link that below as well. When they're brainstorming, what they're thinking about is the art of the possible, as we say. What if I did this? What if we took out that step? Who really needs this information? When do they need it? How will they use it? So here's something I've done before, and it kind of helps get people up, moving around, and thinking differently, and being more collaborative. And that's when you have someone take a book or a piece of paper that represents the thing they're trying to do, and then you have them walk around the room, talking to different people, interacting with them either in their role or as a process step, and checking in. How does this feel? Does this feel good? Does this feel weird? And it's a way that you can actually check, hey, this isn't the right piece of paper I need at the time, or I don't know this information for another 2 steps. Those can be incredible insights to the team. And because now everyone understands the same problem and understands it in the same way, you can share a language of the solution as well. It's a great way to get people to feel like they're in the skin of that person who has to actually do that task, feel those feelings, think those thoughts, and get that outcome they're looking for. But remember, a good workshop isn't just about the stickies on a board and the solution walk around. It's actually about what happens after that. Because if you end a workshop with a board of sticky notes, congratulations, you have great artwork, but you don't have a solution. So what do you do next? You turn all of those sticky notes into a workflow everyone signs off on. You show an action item list with the people who own those actions and the date you're going to follow up on those actions as either a team or individually. And that gives people ownership and skin in the game, because all that chaos has now turned into clarity. All of the issues are now actionable, and all of the players are now on the same team. And that's really the goal. Not perfection, not a diagram, not a bunch of sticky notes like that, but a clear path of how to improve things. One specific user, one specific case, and one specific transformation at a time. Because when the journey map workshop wraps, you're not leaving with a journey, you're leaving with alignment. That's what actually moves things forward for people, for teams, and for companies. If you want to know more about how to get ideas flowing or how to actually plan and execute a workshop, check out these 2 videos. And I'll see you next time on ProjectSkillsMentor.com. Bye-bye, everybody.